face. Just a day or two ago, to an Israeli airstrike. Now, of course, it's military chief as well, someone who, Mohammed Deif, was someone who was the head of the Al-Qassam brigades. He was someone who planned the October 7th attacks, was seen as a major military mastermind behind that, someone who has been an antagonist against Israel for the last couple of decades, was arrested several times, several assassination attempts made on his life over the last couple of decades, which now Israel, on the basis of his information, the Israeli Defense Forces are saying he has been assassinated. So Deif, as I was mentioning, is someone who is extremely important because of the senior leadership position he held in Hamas, because of his role in the October 7th terror attacks, as well as his position as someone who has been an inveterate opponent of Israel over the last couple of decades. So another major development after the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran just a day or two ago. So the major development that has just come in. Of course, one of the things that we'll have to see is the international reactions coming in, especially after Haniyeh's death just a little while ago. Now let's talk a little bit about what we've seen happen over the last couple of days. We will absolutely through the day keep you informed on Deif, who he was. In fact, we're playing some visuals of his photos for you, but one of the interesting things about him was that there's very few visuals of the man himself because of the fact that he preferred to keep a much lower profile. Some of the photos that we have of him were when he was arrested by Israel. One of them that you're seeing playing in front of your screen is when he was arrested in 2000 by Israeli authorities, but very few, unlike Ismail Haniyeh, who was just killed very recently, Deif, there are very few photos of him, very few visuals of him because of the secrecy that he liked to move in. So that was Deif. Let me also walk you through what has happened over the last day or so after Ismail Haniyeh's death. We had, of course, in Tehran a large funeral procession that took place for the remains of Ismail Haniyeh, which was, of course, these prayers were presided over by Ayatollah Khamenei himself, and saw a large turnout within Tehran for this. Of course, we know that Haniyeh will now be buried in Qatar on Friday, so that's what's going to happen over the next couple of days. But that has been the reaction after he was killed in an airstrike by Israel. What we also know, of course, is in another update on the Haniyeh case, is that there was also a major UN Security Council emergency session that took place just yesterday, where leaders of major nations, the United States, Russia, Iran, Israel, they spoke about the assassination of Haniyeh. In fact, I have some of their reactions here, and many of them, of course, some of them that have not been too friendly to Israel, of course, calling this a terror attack. Iran, the country on whose soil this attack took place, called it a heinous crime, called it an act of terrorism. You also have Algeria agreeing with that proposition, also called it an act of terror. You have countries that have had a slightly more measured reaction and have expressed their concern about the possibility of an escalation in violence and escalation in the conflict. You have the United Kingdom, France, Japan talking about how they are worried about where the assassination of Haniyeh now leaves the Middle East, whether it leaves it in a much more precarious position. Russia, of course, also warned that the Middle East was now on the brink of war. But you also had reactions that came in from Israel. You had the Israeli ambassador, of course, who has become a very prominent diplomatic face over the last couple of years since the war began, also coming out and defended any decision to strike, particularly in the case of Fuad Shukr, the senior Hezbollah commander who was killed in Beirut. Of course, you had the Lebanese ambassador also here to the United Nations come out and make certain statements about Israel's killing of Fuad Shukr. Remember that the killing of the senior Hezbollah commander, which took place in Beirut just a couple of days ago, took place right before the Haniyeh killing in Tehran. While Israel has acknowledged responsibility for what happened to Fuad Shukra. It has not commented thus far on the killing of Haniyeh. In fact, the Secretary Antony Blinken, as well as the Prime Minister of Qatar, basically talked about the possibility of of the continuing work towards a ceasefire in Gaza. Did not really comment on this matter. But then you had, of course, the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Robert Wood, talking about the Haniyeh killing, and of course then saying much more clearly that the United States was not involved in his death. So again, the Americans trying to make clear here with their statement that they had no knowledge of or involvement in the killing of Haniyeh. But again, you can see that polarized reactions there in the United Nations Security Council about Haniyeh's death, about where it leaves the Middle East more broadly. We had lots of coverage for you yesterday, where we talked about what the implications of the assassination were, whether this leads to a larger crisis for Hamas, a larger crisis for the region. Will it necessitate some reaction from Iran? Remember, Iran promised retaliation, and Hamas, of course, also promised that that the killing of Haniyeh would not go unanswered. Now, of course, now that you have the confirmed death of Mohammed Deif, does that change things? Does that make, once you have killed two senior leaders of Hamas, where does that leave possibilities for a hostage deal, a ceasefire deal in the region? At this point, that is a developing story and something that the eyes of the world will be on, given the fact that the conflict in Gaza has been going on now since October, and it is something that many countries around the world have pushed for in terms of ending the conflict, in terms of bringing a ceasefire as well as a deal to free hostages taken from Israel by Hamas. But absolutely major development, the killing of Mohammed Deif in an airstrike in Israel in July, being confirmed today, just a day or so after the killing of Ismail Haniyeh, which leaves Hamas in a difficult position, given that its top leadership has now been assassinated. Will they be replaced easily? What does that mean for the organization as a whole, and where does that leave the region as a whole? We will have to keep you updated, and we will through the day have lives just like this for you, interviews to explain where this leaves the region more broadly. Thank you so much for watching India Today Global, and we will keep you updated with all the rest.